My family has had a long connection to a house at the base of Mount Monadnock in Jaffrey, New Hampshire. With centuries of generations passing through this house, when I discovered that my great-uncle, Teddy Greene, had shot over 10,000 feet of 16mm films, starting from as early as 1937, I set out to tell the story of my family's history. I had these old films digitized and interviewed members of my family to learn more about the history, our house in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, and the story of Teddy Greene.
Are you ready? Okay, I'm Stephen. I'm son of Ted Greene and Jerry Greene, and I have a younger sister named Jennifer and an older sister named Dorothy. And that's us up there in those pictures. Okay, so there's my dad. So then this would be his dad, my grandfather. And there's your grandfather, and your grandmother and grandfather. So what do I know about my dad's early life? Not a whole lot. I know he liked going to baseball games. He went to Amherst College. He graduated. He was a very bright guy. He was very smart. He graduated class valedictorian from Exeter, the private boys' school of Exeter. So he was top of his class. He could have gone to Harvard for free, but he chose to go to Amherst instead because his dad had gone to Amherst and his grandfather had gone to Amherst, and so he was an Amherst guy all the way. So he went there as a student and graduated in 1943. Graduated early because of the war. He joined the Air Force. He enlisted in the Air Force and became a weatherman, and was stationed during the war in Denver, Colorado, where they were training pilots, and he was calling the weather for the recruits. And in Denver, he met my mother, who was a librarian. I don't know exactly where it was. I guess it was probably the city library of Denver. And they met and got married and had my sister Dorothy. He went on to go to graduate school in Columbia, and I was born in Nyack, New York, while he was still at Columbia, I believe. And then he got a professorship at Amherst College and never looked back. He stayed at Amherst College for the rest of his life, teaching American history. He was a historian. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in Amherst. Let's see, what else should I tell you? He started taking films when he was a teenager, I think. I think the earliest film that I saw that he had taken was of a road trip that he took with some friends of his from Exeter. I assume this was late 30s. They drove cross country, and let's see, what was the name of the guy? It was Teddy Chamberlain was the guy's name, and a classmate of my father's, I think, at Exeter. And they drove cross country out to California and back, and my dad took the movies, and so there should be some movies of him and his cross country trip. I enjoyed seeing the films of his early days. I used to enjoy the films. He would take films, of family trips. I think he just kind of became like a archiver of the family experience.
Well, Teddy was not as loud or gregarious or holding forth like my father. But Teddy always had the movie camera. And he took pictures of everything. He filmed everything. And he always wanted to show us all of his films.
There were movies from before I was born that he would show that I enjoyed a lot. In the later years, he would just travel and do these travel logs, but there was no sound, and there was not a lot of footage of people in the various places that he traveled to, other than family. You know, he took a lot of pictures of family.
He videoed my wedding. He videoed everybody's weddings. He was there for all of them. And we are very grateful that he did that, because it's priceless. It's precious and priceless.
His old 16 millimeter films are sort of very nostalgic for me. You know, him and Mom would take these canned trips to different places, and there's stuff from China and Peru and France and, you know, all over the place, Greece, etc. He liked to travel, but a lot of his traveling pictures were just like the places that he saw, and then he would narrate them sort of on the spot, you know, while he showed them to us.
You know, and it tastes like this, and then in the movie say, "This is apple brandy, and they just made, and it tastes like this."
He could remember what he said in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, it helps you remember things, I guess, when you have it on camera.
He would be narrating the movie, and then immediately afterwards, on the movie, he'd say exactly the same thing. So we kind of enjoyed that whole process. My father was Teddy's first cousin, and so we, Becky and I, had the chance to view Teddy's films with Teddy. He would show them in his house, and we'd go down there and sit and really enjoyed it. And part of what was fun was just how excited he was about where he had been, a lot of travel movies. And it was just kind of nice being around him, because he was so kind and comfortable and smart, and, you know, just really nice people.
Here's how I knew Teddy. I was really good friends with Jennifer. And so we're about the same age. And so I would come up here in the summers, and we'd spend probably 2 weeks at least every summer up here. And at the time, Jen and I would play in the barn, and, you know, I'd visit down at their house.
I played a lot with the youngest, who's Jennifer, is about 10 months older than I am. We would alternate houses for Christmas. We would do Thanksgiving together. We would always do dress up. That was always fun. Lots of sort of original drama presentations.
And, you know, Jerry was always very hospitable, and Ted was usually, you know, just an old guy watching TV or whatever, you know. Yeah. So I sort of knew him, and I sort of didn't know him, you know. Like, I have no interest in watching baseball games, for instance.
The thing about Teddy, he and my parents shared this love of the Boston Red Sox, like, beyond belief. So they would go to the games all the time. The two of them, like, if we were having a meal, forget it if there was a game on. The men were, like, gone.
I really admired how he worked to keep the family together. You know, just figuring out how to keep things together even through thick and thin. And I always just felt this dedication and loyalty to family. This piece of work was put together by my grandfather. Here, there's signs of who came over on the Mayflower, and these are little stars for when they immigrated. So we're looking at people who immigrated before the United States became the United States, basically.
Our most famous relative is Laban Ainsworth. He is buried in our family graveyard behind the center of Jaffrey. Laban was the first pastor of the First Church in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, and served until he died at the age of 101.
Laban Ainsworth, my great, I don't know how many greats, uncle?
Welcome to the Ainsworth Manse. This has been the family seat for the last 200 and something years, maybe 50 years. It was built in 1788, and it was built for my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was the first minister here in Jaffrey Center. He was the preacher here up until the early 1850s when he passed away at 101.
I love the fact that he lived till he was over 100 years old. At that time, I love the fact that he was instrumental in the freedom train. We have been staunch Yankee abolitionists, I think, for years and years.
All right, so there's 3 portraits of Laban, I think. Here's one of him, probably when he was in his 50s. This is Laban a little later in life. Another oil portrait on wood, and his wife, Mary Minot, over here. And this photograph, I don't know if you can see this,
Yes.
is him at 101.
Wow.
Okay, or shortly before that. Yeah.
Well, I'm mighty pleased about the acres that were given to me to start this town.
They gave you some, did they?
Well, I did get the mountain acreage, of course.
You got that?
And then we got sheep up
We
there.
consider
And my wife,
that nothing.
this would be
your
my
only
wife, Mary Minot.
How do
Mary
you
Minot
do?
Ainsworth.
I broke my leg when I had to jump out of the house when it burned, It was
No.
at night, I had to jump out the bedroom window, and my leg never mended.
Well,
So
haven't you
here
had
I am.
problems?
Story is that there was a fire here and his wife jumped out the window and broke her leg.
Part of his payment for being minister was the top of Mount Monadnock, which belonged to my family up until the late 1800s when we sold it to the town of Jaffrey.
My family owned the top of the mountain at one point and then gave it to the town of Jaffrey.
Mount Monadnock had to be preserved acre by acre from private property, and eventually was designated a New Hampshire State Park. The mountain was saved by the grassroots efforts of preservationists over 2 centuries. Painters, lawyers, foresters, and local politicians alike were all inspired to protect this unique New England landmark from development.
And when we talk about who saved Mount Monadnock, it's easy to argue where the lion's share of the credit should go. And often it's to an individual or an entity or an organization, when the reality is the mountain itself engendered such a feeling among the people of the region.
Well, it's a whole series of accidents. The most unlikely people came forward. People who were busy doing other things came forward, often at the last minute. Whenever Mount Monadnock is endangered by someone who either wants to cut down the trees or build a housing development, there's always this person, this Monadnock angel, who shows up and it starts an organization, a grassroots organization, to raise the money to protect it.
The story of Monadnock is as much about the people who loved it as it is about the mountain itself.
When we were growing up, we had to climb Mount Monadnock without being carried before we're 5. That was the family
long time
rule.
family
and
tradition.
my grandmother had done it, and my father had done it, my aunt had done it.
You did it.
And I did it. All the kids did it. It's like a big thing.
I didn't do that till I was like 7.
Well, not everybody's done it, but a lot.
So then there's when our oldest John, who's here, he he did it, made a big, and David's daughter did it at the same time, so it's sort of a big,
big expedition.
Make a big expedition.
You bring a lot of
it.
candy.
Yeah. And on the way down, though, we're just alone walking.
You and John.
And John, and he's holding my hand. He's a cute little kid. And he turns to me and says, "Why are they making me do this?" I said, "I don't know, John." As though it wasn't me.
The mountain is just part of the climate, the aura, the ambiance of being up there, sitting on the porch and looking through the pine trees at the mountain in the distance.
I've done a little more digging into some of the paper resources and learning a little bit more about the history. This is Henry Walter from 1812 to 1888, an autobiography of an English tramp. I love the handwriting. It's just like Oliver. He just has such a sense of humor. I really enjoy it. Recently, my husband found a book that has pressed flowers respectfully presented to Miss Ainsworth by her brother's obliged and true friend, Benjamin Purley Poor. I was just impressed by this because it has a pressed flower and then it has a little poem. And I was like, is this guy, seems like he's courting Miss Ainsworth, doesn't it? Yeah. He's a friend of her brother's and he's like, it's so romantic.
One artifact we have is the signature of Abraham Lincoln when the admiral, this is sort of like the decree that sort of said like, okay, now you're going to be an admiral, and it was signed by Abraham Lincoln down here. Who is this guy? Okay, I think this is the admiral, and the admiral married Laban's granddaughter. This is him in his full regalia here as an admiral.
Oh.
And he also was known for his collection of shells.
Oh, these are his, all the shells?
All these shells are his. There's 2 more chests full of shells and various books on shells, etc., and other things from the 1800s. So I grew up playing in here. This is like the marble game. I don't know how old it is, but low-tech entertainment.
The favorite thing to play with was the marble slide thing.
So as a child, that was surprisingly interesting. Other things that I enjoyed messing around with is a stereoscope. It's from 1800s, what do they call it on the computers when you can see 3-dimensionals? Anyway, you look through it and it's a photograph and it's offset so that it looks 3-dimensional. Early 3D movie. I don't think it'll work on the camera, but if you had both eyes, one here and one here.
No, it is. And it's
Does it really?
Cool, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
All right.
So cool.
Yeah, so those are just some of the fun things that we have hung on to over the decades, the centuries. And this is the music box. This was like the early hi-fi set. And you make it go by pulling the lever. And it plays like about, 10 different songs. So it'll play one and then it'll skip to the next one.
That is so neat.
Yeah.
We would play tennis on the tennis court, which was right next to the manse. They had horses. They had the stable. It was a great place.
I think the best thing we can do is just spend time here. And we've been really lucky in that we live only about an hour and a half away, and our family has really loved being in the manse. So from when our kids were very tiny, we've vacationed in the manse at least every other year, sometimes every year. And so we just know it, we just know it. We're comfortable here. It's a really nice place to spend time. If you have a vacation where you happen to have a lot of rainy days, it's really no problem because the house is so big and so interesting to spend time in. And if it's nice weather, we go to the club, we climb the mountain, we climb Gap, and we visit with family. And it's just been it's enriched our lives, and I think we've also, all of us have become more involved with the manse and with the F.W. Greene estate as a result.
And if you look at the old photographs around the house, my grandparents' generation and even before that, they were sitting reading in the house, going to the club and climbing the mountain. They were doing
all the same things.
All exactly the same things.
In every room, well, in many of the rooms, there were pictures of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, lots of pictures of ships.
Wasn't the Merrimack one of the first ships that was attacked in the Civil War?
Because there was an admiral named Theodore Penny Greene, who Teddy is named after.
My dad was named after the admiral. So it's Theodore Finney Greene, and that was my dad's given name. So he used to bring this one home and hang it on the wall at home.
Aww.
Just because he identified. And this is his wife. Okay, obviously before they were married. We call her Rubber Arms because her arms are.
These rubber arms.
We have like a whole set of old photographs. The what is it called? Silver nitrate or something?
Oh,
I think, but it's on glass.
Yeah.
And again, these were like early photography, very early photography. Here's so somebody and their kids. And it's.
Is that a carriage? It is a carriage. It's like a big looks like a party carriage.
Wow.
One of the children of the admiral, and became a doctor. The guy that traveled around Europe, the painter.
Yeah.
And this is his apothecary with a lot of really old drugs.
Neat.
Some of them are probably, I'm sure quite a few of them are toxic.
That's so funny. Oh, rat poison.
Rat poison? See, I told you. And the best part of the whole house is the upstairs bathroom. This is in its day, it was quite the thing, quite the luxury to have. You didn't have to go outside. You could just take a dump right there, and it would fall down into the barn where all the animal manure was. It all ended up at the same place.
I mean, to me, it's we feel just tremendously comfortable when we come here. You sort of, my job's kind of intense, we're busy, and we come down here on vacation and just feels very comfortable and relaxed. We easily get calm. But one thing that ties it in for me is the connection with my grandparents and my father and my aunt, and just so things like having our kids play in the barn and having, it's stenciled Mr. Chips, above one of the stalls, and knowing that was my father and his first cousins when he was a kid playing in the barn, and his name's carved into the wall, and our names there, and our kids and the kids' friends, and so I think that just sort of sense of connection, and I kind of feel like I will just be like one other generation that happened to pass through this place, and that sort of feeling is comforting to me. It's just fine.
Oh, I love that.
I'm a member and currently co-leading the Manse Housekeeping and Treasures Committee, which is one of the more active committees of the FW Greene Estate. And our job is to try and preserve the history and the stories, as well as the objects, the furniture, the art in the house, letters. It's a tall order. There's so much, but we do keep track, and we do communicate with each other about different projects that we're working on, and we try and stay supportive of anybody like you who's trying to get more involved with the Manse and understand the history better.
I think that the key is having people feel like it's their house. I think the generation above us really invited Becky and me to feel like it was our house. And when you come and you stay here and you have your friends here, start to feel like your house. And I think, for your generation to have that same experience will get you engaged in that way. The house connects us with each other. It connects us with you today. It connects us, we're just having lunch out in the sun, and after, working on the property, and, that brings us together currently in history. But it also connects us with the past. It connects us with the history that flowed here, and it connects us with place, so that you're sort of really tied to a part of the country and historically. My parents are in the graveyard, my aunt's in the graveyard, then their on my father's side, grandparents, great-grandparents, back 7 generations. So you feel very tied to a spot and a part of history, but that also connects us with each other. So the thing that keeps the family going is really the people's engagement with the house, people caring about each other and about the place and wanting it to keep going.
This is where we have family meeting every July, the last weekend of July, and we figure out, how we're going to pay for maintaining the building, which is a constant concern.
Once a year, every year, my family gets together at the end of the month of July. People come from all over the country to have what's called family meeting.
I really do think I've thought this right at the beginning when I first married Will, and it's continued even more. It just how nice this family is, how nice the people are there, how kind they are to each other, how thoughtful, smart, humble. It's kind of extraordinary. You come year after year to family meeting, and people are, there are differences of opinion, and sometimes there's some fairly serious topics that have to be discussed, but people come at it so thoughtfully and so with such careful consideration of the problems themselves and then of the feelings of others.
How do you feel being at the end of the family meeting train?
Oh gosh, yeah. So I've gone from being the baby on the train. The family comes out of the front door, and we take a video.
The tradition of that.
The tradition is everybody gets there hopefully on time, and we all line up by age and walk through the front door of the manse, and there's a video that's taken and pictures taken every year since the first family meeting, as far as I know. And how do I feel about being towards the end? Oh, there's still a few people behind me still, but I'm getting up there. We have lost the generation above me. And I miss them.
I knew it this afternoon.